Boy, do we have a good little episode for you today. It's actually going to be really crazy because this week in crypto, we've got the CPI data, we've got Bitcoin probably going to see some of the heaviest selling pressure that we've seen in a very, very long time, which could be the catalyst that actually is going to continue this drop and actually mean that we will see a 15K Bitcoin. We don't know for sure, but with the amount of uncertainty, we know one thing is for sure, right? Whenever there's uncertainty, there's always a bit of a risk of, let's run away. So there's always this mentality, guys. I'm going to jump straight into it. Let's have a look at this here. So we can see, obviously, we are in a massive downward trend. AJ's gone through this in more detail, so I'm not going to bother, but we are falling to the downside, unfortunately. But looking at here, stocks climb as investors turn to defensive buys. Now, what are defensive buys? Typically, these are like healthcare companies because they're considered defensive stocks when volatility picks up. Okay. And so obviously, people are looking at this volatility and they're not liking it, which is why they are moving in towards these healthcare companies. Now, there's another massive piece of information that we need to deal with, okay? Because this week we have mega cap companies reporting their earnings. But I do want to just quickly mention before we go into earnings and everything like this, I do just want to mention something from the chief investment strategist, I'm going to say CIO, but strategist at Oppenheimer, okay? In our view, we're certainly not out of the woods yet, but the efforts of the Fed since it pivoted policy to address inflation along with the resilience of the economy in a challenging period, I'm going to add on to that in a second, and some rumbling among Fed speakers that while the rate hikes in November may indeed be 75 basis points, which is that is the case. The Fed may not have to be quite as heavy-handed in December, and that has caught the attention of market participants. So what is he really saying? So yes, during November, we're probably going to have a 75 basis point hike, okay? We've got 91% of it by market participants, we'll say the analysts, economics. The people who do economics, economists, I don't know what they're called. Anyway, but then what he's saying is we might not have to be as heavy-handed, and so we might not see a 75 basis point hike in December. Remember, the target at the moment is 4.4. So that does lead us to believe that we should be in this region here, but I think the Fed might be underestimating it a little bit. So what is it that we have to look out for this week? Obviously, this doesn't come until next week, guys. This, I believe, is on Friday of next week. If I have a look on here, yeah, that is on Wednesday of next week. So lots of volatility. But then what about this week? Okay, this week we have tons of volatility as well. Germany, we got the we're not really too significant, to be honest. Consumer confidence in the US, kind of big, bit of volatility, but not massively going to be moving the markets. Inflation rate in Australia, not massive for us. Bank of Canada interest rate decision. Kind of interesting, but basically they're just saying, look, we're going to do the same as the US. We've got 75 basis point hike. This is where we're going to go to. And then we have the European Central Bank interest rate decision. That will be extremely volatile later on in the week. We have durable goods and GDP growth for the USA, which, we're basically just going to say, oh, we're in a recession. We've been in a recession for bloody 2 quarters now, or 3 quarters almost. Like, we're already in a recession. But you can't be in a recession if you keep changing the definition of a recession. They think that they've figured this out, but I don't think they have. Anyway, then we have inflation in France. We have the Bank of Japan interest rate decision. We have GDP in Spain. We have GDP in Germany. We have inflation in Italy. We have inflation in Germany. We have inflation data from the US. This is a massive day. And this is on the 28th, which is a Friday. So guys, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of drunk people on Friday night once everyone's been dealing with this, the finance bros are going to go crazy on this Friday. A lot of stress coming in for pretty much everyone. If you're in Asia, one of the biggest economies and most respected anyway, especially, integrated with the world, is Japan. So lots of stress there. And then obviously France, Spain, Germany, Italy, lots to talk about there. And a lot of people very worried. And then also we've got the US, biggest economy in the world. So we're anticipating 5.4 on the PCE, which is the core inflation. Again, it's just one of those. If we come in under target, then, hooray, pump the markets, because that means that the Fed rate won't be as strict in their hike. So we might end up more likely on this as opposed to, on the 75 basis point, which is pumping the markets, which is fantastic. And then next week we've got inflation data from the Eurozone, but that's next week. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But on top of that, guys, Philips, Logitech, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Alphabet, Visa, GE, 3M, Spotify, Boeing, Meta, Ford, Hilton, Harley Davidson, because they're kind of cool, Shopify, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Caterpillar, Intel, MasterCard. This is a massive week for earnings. Like, if someone said name just as many companies as you can, I can guarantee you this is the week that has most of them just crammed in together. So there's going to be hedging of bets, guys. There's going to be massive volatility in the NASDAQ. And so this is what I'm going to say, the main catalyst for me anyway, because we are seeing this correlation between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ, that if we do see poor earnings here, obviously a lot of these companies, they've kind of had to sell off assets, which might be good in the short term, but when they're pulling out of Russia, they are losing out on money with that, for example. But also we have the currency conversion where, they can't make as many international sales because, it's going to cost more for the people in the other countries because the dollar is so strong relative to other currencies. So this might hit them. Netflix did well. But I think because Netflix did well, people are thinking, well, actually, if Netflix, which is part of, FANG, if they do well, then surely we'll see Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and everyone else do well as well. So I think that's why people are not necessarily too worried. If it pulls off, it could be fantastic. Okay, I still think, it will be like a relief rally. But ultimately, if it doesn't go well and we start seeing this turn, maybe Monday, Tuesday, probably on Tuesday, I'd say, with the likes of Microsoft and Alphabet, then it could be very bad for the end of the week. But one thing that is good, a little bit, well, I say it's good, it's not that great. 71% of consumers across 6 key markets in Europe have already made significant changes to how they shop as they battle to cope with inflation. 3,000 global consumers said they plan to order fewer food deliveries, and 47% say they will eat out less at restaurants, bars, or cafes. And this is it's exactly what the Fed wants to happen. Sorry, 1 second. Someone's shooting out fireworks outside. What is going on? My little dog went mental. Let me know if you want to see my little dog. Anyway, but this is exactly what the Fed want, and what, essentially everyone around the world wants, is to have people spend less money, shrink the economy. It's good for the recovery. And speaking of economies and people who are good for it, as we know, Rishi Sunak has become UK Prime Minister. So he is very pro crypto, which is a very good thing for us. Taking the issue outside of cryptocurrency and how many Bitcoin can you buy is just, I guess, something they're talking about before. Sunak added that there is also scope for the underlying blockchain technology to improve supply chains, bring about customs and border efficiencies, and make banking cheaper and more accessible, which is a very, very big thing because the UK is massive banking hub. It's a massive banking hub. And if he's looking at using blockchain tech, this is what I think is actually going to be the real benefit for crypto. It's not, speculating on coins. I don't think that's going to change the world we live in. But using blockchain tech in a very smart way will. This is what does make me quite happy. And we are just seeing, just to finish off here, Bitcoin's volatility falls amid rising uncertainty in stocks. So now we're looking at, maybe Bitcoin isn't as volatile as perhaps some stocks. I mean, look, at the moment it is, but we have a trend going in the other direction, which is kind of insinuating that in fact Bitcoin might become to be a little bit more resilient to a stronger dollar, because we're seeing currencies just drop all over the place. People are moving out of things like Japanese yen. That's just been absolutely smashed. Let me just see USD JPY, US dollar Japanese yen. Um, it's a really, really ugly picture for the Japanese yen. Let me go on a weekly. Yeah, you see this. That's just been a continuous rise for the dollar against the yen. So it really doesn't look very good. It really doesn't look great at all. Caesar. So there we go. I am gonna jump off now. Pat Murphy, I feel like I have to disagree with you there, mate. Bitcoin cannot drop to 15K, not possible. I think it is. I think it is possible. A lot of people are looking at support zones and stuff like this. Let me just look at BTC USD. Whoa, I think I've just messed up AJ's chart here, but geez. Look at it. Okay, overall, just looking at the I'm going to speak from a fundamental point of view, so maybe it's better I don't do this. But just looking at core inflation is continuing to go up. CPI is coming down, but the central banks, they look at core inflation. They don't look at anything else. Looking at how big companies like this, they will begin to feel this difference in the currency exchange rate, and so less sales overseas. Also, they've pulled out of Russia, which is a very big market, 144 million people there. So these will begin to have a problem on them. And I know that supply chain issues are getting better, which kind of reducing any cost or anything like this. But yeah, ultimately, we've only just started raising rates. And so as rates are being raised by the Fed, then that's only starting to now have an effect on the banks. And it's going to stay that way for another year. So it's going to be another year, or maybe two, of this continued pressure on not being able to borrow money, not being able to hire extra staff. And so I think this will really put a negative pressure upon the stock market in general, and then also obviously on Bitcoin, because if people are moving away from these risky assets like Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, etc., and they are moving towards some of these safer healthcare stocks, for example, just ones that are recession proof, like this, like waste management. I know Microsoft man, Bill Gates, he has a lot of his portfolio in this company because, rain or shine, recession or not, everyone is gonna, you've got to sort your rubbish out. So this is kind of like recession proof. Whereas, I'm not going to use McDonald's because I know it's inverse. Oh, the example is Spotify. People might cancel their Spotify and just go use YouTube and accept the ads if they don't have any money. So this is kind of, this is not recession proof. And so, yeah, I think we might begin to see this as, again, where is it? Here. Nope. Here. As a lot of people just kind of spend less money. So, yeah, I do think we will see this. And what do you think? Let me know down in the comments if you guys agree. But I appreciate the input here, Pat. It's good to at least discuss this, isn't it? Get a good understanding of what we both think and how our mind's working. But that's all from me today, guys. Hope you have a nice day. And also make sure that you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will see you tomorrow.